like, so much drama in my own mind. And I drove my family crazy. If I was washing dishes, singing, I got again, the movie Disney films, I was obsessed with My Reflections for a while. And I'd be, and again, with that same, I was a little bit older when that came out, so my voice was
Reflections?
Isn't that what it's called? Reflections, right? From
song?
Mulan, when will my reflection? Isn't it called Reflections?
It's just called Reflection.
Okay, Myra, whatever. But I would be doing the dishes. I remember my mom was pregnant with my youngest sister, who is 10 years younger than me. So I was 10 at the time, or maybe like 9 and a half. And I was doing the dishes, and my mom had a kind of rough pregnancy with her and was on bed rest, so she couldn't escape. And she was upstairs, and I have this disease where I sing the same part of a song that I like over and over loudly. And I'd be doing the dishes. So, like, I can't hear her screaming to stop because the water is running and I am shrieking. And she's, like, probably upstairs, like, bedridden, like, stop for the love of God! But, like, I'm just like, when will my reflection show who I am inside? I loved that note. It's the inside. Yeah, no, it was, and just over and over. And then I got obsessed with Christina Aguilera, and I think that's around the time that I switched from being obsessed with like movie musicals to actual mainstream pop, because I wasn't allowed to listen to Christina Aguilera or Britney Spears, but I knew who they were. And anytime when that's where my love of pop music started to develop. I went to public school for 6th grade, and I would be in, and Britney had already been out for a few years. Like, Britney had Baby One More Time and Crazy singles when I was in 4th grade, the year Gwen was born. But I'd never even seen a music video. I just remember hearing it at school, and like all the little girls loved it. And like the song was like, Hit Me Baby One More Time. And I was like this little conservative Christian kid. And I was like, why does she want someone to hit her? You know, like I didn't get the context at all. Like, I thought it was like about, like, but she seemed really excited about it. You know, like I didn't get it. But then, Oops, I Did It Again came out when I was in 6th grade, and I remember very specifically because it was the first time I'd ever seen Britney Spears in a music video. I'd never seen her face before, even like in a store. I didn't know what she looked like, but I'd heard the voice. And say hello to the girl that I am. You know, that very like Britney, baby, like stylistic thing that she did. It was throaty and nasal, and I freaking loved it. I don't know why. I still to this day love it. It appealed to me. And I was in the library, because my mom would drop me off at school early because she had to go work and do things. And so like I would do the homework that I was supposed to be doing the night before in the library like half an hour before school would start. You know, they had a TV on. And Oops, I Did It Again is where she's like wearing that red cat suit. And it's like set on Mars, like in outer space, and has like references to Titanic. And she's just like laying like with like writhing boys around her, and she's just like, oops, I did it again. And I was just like obsessed, you know what I mean? And just had to get any Britney that I could get, sneaky, you know what I mean? I wasn't allowed to listen to it. So I exposed myself to as much Britney as I could expose myself to secretly, but it was not until I was 16 when my parents were like, you can make your own choices to music, where I then just consumed the entire Britney Spears discography that I'd never been given access to, and also Christina Aguilera, just like everything they did, I just like listened to it constantly. So like those two, like a lot of people were into the boy bands in the 90s and the early 2000s. I was a Britney Christina file all the way. Like I was about it, you know what I mean? Like there was not a question about my, although it was hard for me because a lot of people, you know, they were like either on the Christina side or on the Britney side, and I was so on both. I was so on Christina's side vocally, but Britney just appealed to me so much, and I couldn't make a choice. And that was a very hard time for me.
So, what kind of stuff are you working on right now?
So, I'm working now on my first professional release. You know, it's Jeff True Jones. I don't know if it's going to have a title. It's 4 songs that I've written. It's the result of years of writing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just sometimes as a writer, I will get stuck on certain themes, I went through a breakup a few years ago that kind of like inspired all of my music for a while. Like every song was about that relationship. And a year after the breakup, I wrote a song called Boxes, which was about when I showed up at he and I's place and all of my stuff was packed up and he was like, get out. It was a very like true to my life song. And then flash forward a couple more years, I'm in a much happier relationship, but it's like I wrote, I guess what I'm getting at is like a lot of the songs on my EP, the record, I don't really know the difference between an EP and a record, so I go back and forth between what I'm calling it. A lot of them are like the most up-to-date versions of older stuff that I've written. So it's like a lot of my, they're my best songs in my opinion. Though I think some of the old songs that I've written were good. I've attempted other recording projects in the past. This is not my first rodeo. It's just my first well thought out, well planned, with a goal to finish all of that sort of rodeo. Because I used to have songs that were good, and I would go into the studio, and it's like, there would be the way that I had written it and I would play it, but it's like I would go into the studio and I felt this pressure to like make something that sounded like what was on the radio, so I would just like try and change everything and like add a beat and like do all of the arranging in the studio. Whereas with this EP, the one that I'm working, like I'm in the process of working on right now, it's 4 songs that are quite good, all of which are similar thematically, but they also stand alone as individual pieces. They're all kind of vignettes. The overall EP is about the dissolution of a relationship, and each song takes place from a slightly different point of view and a slightly different place in that dissolution. Kind of like the initial dissatisfaction, the actual breakup itself, kind of the space right after the breakup where you still feel that connection but it's dissolving. And then there's the final piece, which is just kind of the overarching, it's called One Man Down, is the overarching feel, because like, there are 4 songs. One is called One Man Down, the other one's called Complicated, and then there's a song called Rebecca, and then there's a song called Lift You Up. Complicated is, that's like my more jazzy up-tempo song, and that's where like, it's from the point of view of one person in the breakup, and they're angry at the other person, and it's like more up-tempo. It's kind of like a jazzy Since You've Been Gone. Like I'm just like singing you out the door. You know, it's like, have a nice day, get out of my house. You know, like it's the most up-tempo piece. Rebecca is a little bit more looking back on the relationship. Like, you know, the lyrics go, was I right or was I blind? You know, like questioning, now that the dust has settled, where things were, and it just talks about like moving on after the person is out of your life and doing the same things you used to do with that person, but just kind of like trying to figure out your life when you're not half of a couple anymore, when you're just back to, you've spent this time having this joint identity and you have to reassemble yourself as a more singular identity, and like figuring out how to fill up your time and like just like what you're doing with yourself. Lift You Up is more about the space between the 2 people before it dissolves, kind of like you're not connecting, and there's this big space full of all of the things that you're not saying to each other, and it just keeps filling, and the space just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and you're trying to find them in this vacuum, in this void, and you just can't make the connection. And then One Man Down, like I said, is less vignette-y, it's less standalone, and it's kind of the piece that ties all 3 together, and it starts from the very beginning of the breakup, and like where they have the initial conversation of like, let's talk this out, like let's be really critical, and then it moves through the timeline of the breakup, goes all the way through up to like they've like moved on and just like looking back on the regret. So I know it sounds like there's a lot of feelings in it, and it's a very feely record, but I think that's good. You know what I mean? Like it's a thing I relate to.
Definitely.
So it's a lot of life experiences of mine over the past 5 years, packed into 4 songs that are all thematically similar but also standalone pieces.
Do you want to play one of these?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm gonna swish some water, and I think I'm gonna start with Complicated because that's my most poppy, you know, like.
Right on.
I don't know if I'm gonna release. I think I'm just going to release it as an EP. But if I were going to make a music video or shoot or like release a single, I think this would be the first one.
Right on.
And this is the Singing Somebody Out of the Door piece. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit more. I think they're all fun, but like it's a little bit more fun. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I enjoy all of them, but it's a little bit less like having a cup of tea and being sad and reading a book, and it's a little bit more like, like that. Okay. Should I angle this way?
You can do whatever you want.
Okay. Do you think this will be loud enough?
Yeah, it should be.
She's on your side. She's got nowhere to go. But when you make up your mind, she'll be the last to know. 'Cause she's on fire. And no why. She's got no taste. And you're waste. Let's not make it more complicated. We both, you got to go. The past has already demonstrated the shit was destined alone. So take your time to pack your things. You know by now it was not meant to be. She'll be gone, so carry on. I hope I know that you see. Put on your blouse, 'cause babe, it's cold outside. When your cab gets here, tip him for the ride. You've got your case packed full of your things. One fond embrace, it's the end of our days. Let's not make it more complicated. We both, and you got to go. The past has already demonstrated the shit was destined alone. So take your time to pack your things. You know by now it was not meant to be. She'll be gone, so carry on. Hope I know that you see. I'm in Georgia. They say I'm doing fine, but they are liars. I think about you all the time.
Very nice.
Thank you. But yeah, no, that's the one where like basically they realize it kind of like changes perspective a bit. Like I play sort of part of the narrator, but then I also switch to the perspective of it's a male and female in the relationship and they're living together. And it starts out like I'm the outside looking in, like I'm just a third party. And like she's on his side and she's got nowhere to go. Like she's so there and he can't figure out what he's doing. And that's why the song's like, she's on fire and on a wire. She's got no taste and you're a waste. So then like I'm singing him out the door for her. I'm just being like, bro, like stop wasting her time. You know what I mean? And then it switches to like first person where she quite adores him. That's why, I think it's like set in Chicago or something in my head. You know what I mean? Like it's somewhere snowy and cold and kind of like melancholy, but not too sad. Like that's just the visual I get.